A battered figure lay sprawled on the ground, steeped in despair. His predicament began with an attack from a creature that was nothing more than programming. He was certain his 17th year of life was about to be cut short. A premature assumption. The scene shifts to 3 months prior, near an active volcano. Below, 2 individuals stood against a dragon. The beast charged, targeting the human equipped with a shield. The blonde-haired companion yelled a warning to Naoki, indicating a powerful strike was imminent. The monster swung to obliterate the man with the shield. The defense did not hold. The shield shattered, its wielder thrown violently against a wall as his health points dropped to 1. A system alert confirmed the activation of his super resistance skill, noting 46 uses were still available. Naoki, recovering on the floor, acknowledged the familiar surge of fear the ability always caused. Seizing the opportunity, the blonde warrior rushed in, acknowledging that Naoki had created the ideal opening. His sword sliced through the dragon, causing it to dissolve into a flurry of digital code. This victory advanced the blonde fighter to level 20, finally unlocking the conditions for a class change. The blonde warrior was Hiro Ri, level 20. Naoki expressed his discomfort with repeatedly being used as a human shield for his older brother. Even in a game, having his health reduced to a single point was a terrifying experience. He rose, announcing an end to their training for the day because he needed to leave for work. His brother's expression soured, but the necessity was clear. Naoki left, promising to assist with more leveling the following day and voicing his belief that his brother would become the top-ranked player. Hiro Ri returned the sentiment, stating that such an achievement would elevate them both to the #1 spot. The perspective abruptly changes to an individual in a hospital bed, a virtual reality headset covering his eyes. A television news report discussed a developing crisis. Experts were analyzing an incident within the popular game, Genesis Chronicles Online, affecting players globally from Tokyo to Paris and Rio de Janeiro. A full month had passed since the catastrophe began. The news station sought answers about the cause and potential solutions. An elderly analyst proposed the event was an act of terrorism orchestrated by the game's developers, with the players as hostages. Since the incident's start, logging out was impossible. Damage sustained in the game inflicted real pain, and if a player's health points reached 0, they died in their hospital bed. Death also resulted from any attempt to forcibly remove the virtual reality headset. Outside the hospital room, the protagonist stood with tightened fists, consumed by guilt. He blamed himself for the situation, as he had gifted the headset to his younger brother for his birthday. On the television, the expert admitted they had no solution and urged the public to avoid logging into the game at all costs. Back in his own home, the protagonist prepared to do the exact opposite. He understood that entering the game was a likely death sentence. Yet, he recalled all the time he had spent playing with Hiroki, who was now trapped inside. His brother's in-game avatar might have looked like an adult, but he was only a 12-year-old child. The thought of abandoning the boy to die alone was unbearable. He donned the VR headset, resolved to save him. In the present, screams cut through a forest. A heavy-set bunny girl and a dark-skinned human fled for their lives. The man stumbled over a rock, his body hitting the dirt hard. A corresponding twitch rattled his physical form in the hospital. Scrambling up, he cried out in terror, not wanting to die. As he glanced back, a massive wolf loomed over him, its tongue swiping past his head. The surrounding trees were filled with more of the beasts. The bunny girl trembled, overwhelmed by despair and the certainty of her demise. A game over in this world meant a real one in the hospital. The man's vital signs monitor went silent. Now it was her turn. Knowing escape was futile, she watched as 3 wolves lunged. From a distance, a figure with a shield charged onto the scene. He intercepted the attack just before it reached her, absorbing the impact of the first wolf. The force sent both him and the creature flying backward. His super resistance skill, with its 9,999 uses, activated, leaving him with precisely 1 health point. He was crushed and near death, but alive. He asked if the girl was unharmed. She thanked him but urged him to look at his own critical health status. He dismissed her concern, explaining it was the effect of his unique class talent. The skill would trigger if he took a fatal blow while above 70% health, reducing him to 1 HP instead of killing him. Given the real-life stakes, it was a horrifying ability to rely on. He consumed a potion, remarking that he would never get used to the realistic sensation of pain. His situation was dire. He had created this character solely to support his brother's leveling, and was consequently at a very low level himself. Locating and saving this girl had been a stroke of luck, as his brother was nowhere in the vicinity. He turned to her and announced his plan. He would create a diversion, and she was to run for the village. Once she gave her assent, he moved toward the bushes. A colossal creature stood before him, having already slaughtered all the wolves. His expression shifted to one of alarm. He identified the beast as a Jack Rex, a monster known to spawn randomly in the region, a hybrid of a jackal and a tyrannosaurus. He questioned the terrible timing of its appearance, certain that if it detected them, their chances of survival would plummet to 0. Predictably, the monster's gaze immediately swung in his direction. He dashed toward the bunny girl to shield her as the beast swiped a claw, narrowly missing them. The creature's attack patterns were completely unpredictable. It slammed its tail against a large rock, launching the boulder toward the pair and blocking their escape route. As Naoki looked back, the monster was already winding up for another tail strike. The attack appeared to land dead on, yet when the dust settled, the tanker remained on his feet. He had 1 health point, but he was alive. This was the 10,000th time his unique ability had activated, a running total of its uses. At that moment, Naoki understood a grim reality. No amount of healing potions could buy him enough time to create an escape from this foe. The situation was made worse by the complete lack of information about his brother's well-being. In a desperate, final act, he charged forward to strike the boss just as it lunged to bite him. His special skill triggered. After having his health drop to 1 for the 10,000th time, he had unlocked Desperate Soul. A strange energy flooded his body, and his hand began to radiate a golden light. The instant the monster's teeth made contact with his fist, the creature was annihilated, shattering into a billion digital fragments. The force of the impact carved a long trench through the landscape, and a red rain began to fall. He and the bunny girl stood there, baffled by the event. Staring at his own hand, he could not comprehend what had just occurred. The bunny girl questioned why he would hide such an incredible skill. He explained that its activation was a complete surprise. A new system window had appeared, granting him an ability he had never seen before. He examined the details of Desperate Soul in the system menu. When his HP fell to 1, the skill boosted his attack power to 99,999 for 3 minutes, after which it would return to normal. While immensely powerful, it was also incredibly risky. His survival talent only worked when his health was above 70%. At 1 HP, any minor attack from even the weakest enemy would be instantly fatal. The bunny girl, able to see the shared system window, commented that she had never witnessed such a skill. Naoki explained that since he began playing, he had only ever assisted one person with leveling. This singular focus as a dedicated shield is why, despite his low level, he had blocked so many attacks and triggered his 1 HP ability thousands of times. He felt a surge of hope, believing this new power could help him find Hiroki. Just then, the nearby bushes rustled, and 3 more wolves emerged. The bunny girl screamed in terror. Confident in his newfound power, Naoki prepared to fight. He was still at 1 HP, and his fist should have been glowing. He threw a punch, but nothing happened. The power was gone. He immediately grabbed the girl and fled, knowing that even a single lick from a wolf would kill him. While running, he tried to figure out why the skill failed. He then realized it had not failed. Its 3-minute duration had simply expired. The ability was now on a 30-minute cooldown. The worst part, an unwritten detail, was that during this cooldown, his HP was locked at 1. Fleeing from monsters with a single point of health was a hopeless task. Suddenly, the bunny girl broke free from his grasp and darted to the side. He started to question her actions, but then saw her eating some grass. He thought she had lost her mind until he saw her mana bar rapidly refill. She touched his chest and used a clone skill, creating duplicates of them both. The illusions danced before the wolves, luring them away in a different direction. The real pair collapsed on the ground, exhausted. Later, near the fountain in the game's first village, they formally introduced themselves. The bunny girl was Izuyoi Rabiko, a level 13 mage. He was Naoki, a level 8 tanker. They both acknowledged their mutual debt, each admitting they would have died without the other's intervention. He commented on her method for restoring mana. She shot back, questioning if he was a complete novice for not knowing that common herbs replenish magical energy. She found it amusing that two beginners had barely survived by helping each other, but the levity vanished as the raw fear of her near-death experience surfaced. She began to cry, overwhelmed by the terror of the situation. Naoki placed a hand on her head, offering a quiet gesture of understanding. Both knew that in this new reality, death was permanent. This world was no longer just a game. Genesis Chronicles Online was a massive online role-playing game with a population of over 300 million players worldwide, celebrated for its immersive experience and high degree of freedom. That all changed abruptly. The game's monsters turned feral, launching unprovoked attacks on players and transforming the world into a death trap. This brutal challenge appealed to some, leading to the high-risk survival strategy he and his brother devised, a tactic that demanded perfect execution to avoid a swift and final death. The bunny girl praised his unique skill, expressing amazement that he could obliterate such a powerful monster with a single blow. She remarked that for a moment, his power reminded her of Hiroki. At the mention of the name, he seized her shoulders, demanding to know if she knew his brother. She confirmed it, explaining that Hiroki, known as the Hero King, was famous and had saved her once when the chaos began. The protagonist asked her to send him a message, a feature he had yet to unlock due to his low level. She agreed to contact Hiroki and inform him that his older brother was with her. Elsewhere, a notification arrived. Hiroki was in the middle of slaughtering a horde of monsters, his hands moving with blinding speed. A horned creature with 4 arms confronted him, urging him to stop and read the incoming message. The boss-like being taunted him, calling it his last opportunity to communicate with anyone. Hiroki dismissed the warning, stating he would respond after he had won the fight. Back at the fountain, the girl relayed to Naoki that Hiroki had not replied, concluding he must be engaged in something important. His location tracker indicated he was close by, so they could go investigate. He agreed it was a good idea, and they set off immediately. The scene cut back to Hiroki, facing off against the formidable boss. He activated his battle aura and swung his sword, but the creature merely laughed. The attack was ineffective, and Hiroki was thrown violently to the ground. The boss, named Zell, a level 63 demon king, landed before him with his dragon, commending the boy's heroic spirit. It was then revealed that Hiroki himself was an incredibly high level 65. Hiroki realized Zell was not an AI monster, but a player who had obtained the Demon King class. The situation was complicated by Zell's mount, a level 58 dragon. Observing an aura on Zell that matched the energy of the rampaging monsters in the area, Hiroki concluded this player was the source of the entire catastrophe. He resolved to put an end to the chaos. Zell found his determination amusing. He then noticed a group of other adventurers watching the confrontation from a distance. The Demon King laughed and leaped toward the onlookers. Hiroki screamed a warning, but it was too late. Zell grabbed 2 of them by the head and activated a forbidden skill called the Gate of Beasts. Within a second, the 2 players were twisted into monstrous forms. Furious, Hiroki charged, intent on stopping the player who was toying with others' lives. He faltered for a moment, realizing that killing these transformed players would result in their deaths in the real world. He chose to evade, slipping between the 2 new monsters and leaping onto Zell's back. He landed another clean slash across the Demon King's chest. Enraged, the creature commanded his dragon to intervene, but a powerful strike had already gashed the dragon's side. With a serious expression, Hiroki demanded to know why Zell was doing all this, adding that he had no desire to destroy this world. Zell declared the world perfect. It was a place without unfair advantages or needless restrictions, where the powerful earned the freedom they were due. As a supporter of this principle, he had no intention of destroying it. Hiroki yelled back, questioning the logic of loving a world that was responsible for the deaths of countless people. Unmoved, Zell placed his hand on the ground, remarking on their difference of opinion. He then summoned a horde of monsters, declaring that the numbers were against Hiroki. Realizing that Zell was transforming innocent people and creatures into these beasts, Hiroki charged at him with a curse. Watching him fight amidst the swarm, Zell weighed the hero's chances of survival. He knew that in this game, overwhelming numbers did not guarantee victory. At the same time, he recalled Hiroki's earlier hesitation when faced with killing transformed players, a weakness he could now exploit. As Hiroki cut down monsters from every direction, he noticed that Zell had vanished. He leaped into the air, scanning his surroundings, but his expression suddenly changed. Nearby, Naoki and the bunny girl were just arriving, observing the field of defeated monsters. Without warning, Zell materialized directly in front of them, his hand lunging forward. The aftermath was a spray of blood. The Demon King smiled, admiring an unseen act. Hiroki stood between them, blood dripping from his mouth, his torso impaled by Zell's arm. Naoki stood frozen, his mind reeling. He had entered this world for the sole purpose of saving his brother, and now he was watching him be murdered. Before he could process the scene, Zell ripped his arm sideways, tearing what was left of Hiroki's shoulder apart. The Hero King's health bar depleted to 0. His body collapsed face first onto the ground. A system message broadcast that the player Hero King had been defeated by the player Zell, an alert sent to the extensive friends list of players he had saved. As he died, he called out Naoki's name. In a hospital far away, his heart monitor went flat. Zell smiled, proclaiming the hero's demise. Blinded by grief, Naoki threw a clumsy punch that missed wildly. The demon laughed, asking if he was a friend of the fallen hero. He dodged another attack and delivered his condolences with a fist to Naoki's face. Placing his hand on the ground, he summoned another swarm of creatures, offering to send the boy to join his brother. An explosion engulfed the area. Zell smirked, assuming another loser had been dealt with. From the smoke and debris, however, Naoki walked out with his health fully restored. Stunned, Zell ordered the remaining creatures to attack. Naoki simply raised a hand, and an invisible force sliced a monster in two. The Demon King realized this opponent was different. He gritted his teeth, summoned even more monsters, and commanded them all to attack at once. Surrounded on all sides, Naoki remained untouched. A moment later, Zell found half of his own body had been vaporized by an attack he never even saw. A new trench was carved into the earth. Baffled by how a low-level player could possess such power, he teleported away. Naoki was left standing alone, questioning where his enemy had gone. He asked Rabiko if she could do anything, but she shook her head. She then pointed out that his desperate soul ability had already worn off. The 3-minute duration had seemingly vanished in an instant, likely consumed during the unseen annihilation of the monster horde. Izayoi stated that they stood no chance against an enemy like Zell without that power. Naoki slammed his fist onto the ground and screamed at the sky. In a different part of the forest, a wounded Zell, missing an arm, opened a communication window. He contacted an unknown individual, demanding to know what kind of attack he had just endured. He had never seen such a ridiculous skill and questioned if it was a cheat. The person on the other end replied that it was not. It was a secret talent called Desperate Soul. Zell insisted such an ability should be disabled, but the contact refused, stating they would not interfere with player skills. They added that Zell was the only one who could deal with the boy, reminding him that the target was not immortal. Zell agreed, affirming his belief that those who break the order of things must be eliminated. A flashback shows the starter village during the time Naoki first began helping his brother level up. He was struggling against a single goblin, finding the game much harder than he had anticipated. His brother pointed out that goblins were the weakest enemies, and that he should be capable of defeating one. Naoki complained that he had just installed the game and was still unfamiliar with the controls. His brother, understanding, leaped in and cleaved the goblin in half instantly. He then turned to Naoki, stressing that he needed to learn these skills if he ever hoped to save anyone. Back in the present, in that same village, Naoki sat brooding under a tree. The small bunny girl watched him with a sad expression. She remarked that a full week had passed with him in this state. He dismissed her attempts to console him, insisting that what happened was his responsibility. Staring at a tattered piece of his brother's cloak, he tormented himself with thoughts of what he could have done differently, from taking the game more seriously to never giving it to Hiroki in the first place. He was convinced that he was the one who had truly killed his brother. Izayoi moved closer and gave him a small hug. She told him not to blame himself, certain that Hiroki would not want that. She reminded him that his brother had loved the game more than anyone and had a natural heroic quality. She now understood that Hiroki's heroism was inspired by his older brother. While Naoki felt guilty for introducing him to the game, it was that very act that allowed Hiroki to save countless people. She insisted his brother would not want to see him consumed by grief. He needed to move forward, not by forgetting, but by carrying the memory with him. The words broke through his despair. Naoki wiped away his tears. He declared that his brother had loved this world, and for that reason, He would not allow it to be destroyed. Turning to the tree, he made a vow to the memory of his brother. He would protect everything Hiroki had cherished. He carved the hero's name into the bark, promising to help everyone in his place, and above all, to exact revenge on Zell. He would not let this be a simple death. From that moment, Naoki knew his first priority was to get stronger. Although he possessed the desperate soul skill, he needed to improve all his other stats. As a monkey charged at him, he focused on his goal to become as strong as, or even stronger than, Hiroki had been. He dodged an attack, recognizing the need to sharpen his combat instincts. The stronger he became, the more players he could protect. The monkey landed a solid blow, but from the smoke, Naoki emerged, activating a skill and leveling up to 13. As he trained, Izayoi would often run past, dragging a trail of low-level monkeys behind her. He quickly reached level 16. After each fight, he would immediately consume potions, driven to level up as quickly as possible to defeat Zell. He was keenly aware that Zell was also a player, and therefore also growing stronger at a much faster rate. Naoki had to be cautious of his skill's long cooldown period. Izayoi's method of attracting mobs, though chaotic, did help him farm experience more efficiently. She apologized for her fearfulness. Naoki advised her to use her magic more confidently, noting that her teleportation and clone abilities had strategic uses beyond just escaping. She explained that she learned those skills precisely because they were perfect for running away. She admitted that her cowardly nature was the reason her level remained so low after so much time in the game. Experience was only awarded for landing the final hit on an enemy. He told her not to worry, as he intended to fight Zell alone, giving her a blunt ultimatum: get stronger or stay out of the way. She balked at the idea of him going alone and insisted on leveling up to help. He suggested that better equipment might make her feel more secure. Looking at her simple clothes, she realized how unprotected she was, but admitted she had no money for armor. Finding a player with a blacksmith class was another problem, as they were rarely found in beginner areas. He told her they could at least try to find one in the village. A dwarf with a mark on his forehead overheard them and claimed to know a very good blacksmith. When they pressed him for details, he revealed it was only a rumor he had heard. The dwarf mentioned a name, Eltz. The word sent Izayoi into a state of excitement, and she asked if he meant the legendary blacksmith. Naoki had no idea who she was talking about. She explained that Eltz was the in-game persona of Tsubasa Yamaha, a real-world actress so famous that even Naoki recognized the name. Tsubasa was not just a movie star, but also a dedicated gamer, with a channel boasting over 1.2 million subscribers, renowned within the game as an unparalleled blacksmith. Izayoi admitted that the actress was her personal favorite. The dwarf added a disappointing detail. Though rumored to be in the area, he had never seen her, and she had seemingly vanished for the last 2 months. The scene shifts to a cave, where Eltz is wiping sweat from her brow. In the game, she is the blacksmith, working to collect materials. The progress is agonizingly slow due to her working alone. She was weary of relying on other people. Grabbing her pickaxe, she cemented her resolve to never again ask for assistance, a decision forged from a past betrayal where supposed friends had tried to exploit her. That experience created a deep-seated hatred of working in groups. Meanwhile, Naoki and the bunny girl were trekking through a forest, discussing their urgent need for new equipment and their mission to find the missing blacksmith. Izayoi voiced the obvious problem. How could they possibly find someone who had been gone for 2 months? As she spoke, movement in the branches above caught their attention. A massive spider was poised to attack. Izayoi trembled in fear, but Naoki stood his ground, preparing to take the first hit and activate his 1 HP survival skill. She quickly warned him that this specific type of spider attacked 5 or 6 times in rapid succession. The first hit would drop him to 1 HP, and the immediate follow-up strikes would kill him. This new information sent them both running for their lives. Their frantic escape led them to the edge of a high cliff, trapping them. With no other options, Izayoi grabbed Naoki's hand and pulled him over the side. Just before they would have splattered on the ground below, she opened a short-range portal, tumbling them safely to the side. Exhausted and shaken, they looked up to see someone in front of them. They had landed directly at the feet of Eltz, who was in the middle of gathering materials. Izayoi instantly recognized her and called out her name, leaving the blacksmith no room for denial. The moment she was identified, Eltz panicked and fled, her pickaxe bouncing on her back. Naoki shouted after her, pleading for her help with crafting items. She stopped abruptly, opened her inventory, and created a massive wall of shields between them. From behind the impenetrable barrier, she told them to leave her alone. Izayoi recognized the move as a classic Elt's tactic, an exploit of a blacksmith skill that allowed the summoning of hundreds of inventory items at once. As Izayoi yelled apologies, trying to explain they meant no harm, they heard a skittering sound behind them. They turned to see the spider from before. It had simply climbed down the cliff face. Trapped between the monster and the shield wall, they were out of options. Seeing their hopeless situation, Eltz realized she had to act. She dispelled the barrier just as the spider lunged. A volley of portals opened above the creature, and she unleashed a rain of items. A clumsy but overwhelming cascade of equipment rained down, crushing the monster under its immense weight. From a distance, Eltz informed them that her debt was paid. She had saved their lives, and that was all she would do. She said her goodbyes and disappeared, wanting nothing more to do with them. Izayoi was despondent. They had not only failed to secure her help, but had likely made an enemy of her. Sometime later, Eltz entered her cabin near a waterfall. The floor was covered with her creations. She sat down, her mind drifting back to a memory of a live stream. She was telling her excited viewers about a rare material she was about to acquire, promising to craft an item for a lucky subscriber. That was the day she first tried to log out and found that she couldn't. A sinister-looking player had appeared behind her, calling her by her real name, Tsubasa Yamaha. He declared that with everyone trapped in the game forever, it was the perfect opportunity. Before Eltz could react to the threat, a group of other players intervened, restraining the hostile man and telling her not to worry. Sometime later, the grim reality of being trapped in the game had set in. Players gathered, discussing the widespread desperation. It became clear that people famous in the real world were becoming targets. The group that had saved her, seemingly out of goodwill, offered her their permanent protection. Eltz stood up, rejecting the role of someone who needed to be guarded. She lifted her hammer and declared her intention to help people protect themselves by crafting powerful equipment for everyone. Her resolve inspired the group. They ventured into the mountains together, hunting for minerals to aid her craft. They spent their time sharing stories around campfires and adventuring in the forest, quickly becoming a close-knit team. Before long, everyone in the group was fully outfitted with her gear. This period of hope did not last. During a hunting expedition, the entire party was ambushed and killed. In the final moments, the archer of the group sacrificed himself, urging her to run while he held off their attackers. She escaped, but was consumed by a crushing guilt. She blamed herself for the tragedy, believing she was not strong enough to fight alongside them and that her crafting skills had failed to produce gear good enough to save them. In her mind, everyone had died just so she could get away. This belief drove her into self-imposed exile, determined not to drag anyone else down with her. The scene shifts to Zell, who stood before a skeleton and announced he was heading to the northern region. He turned to his two subordinates, a small but menacing demon girl and a large, brutish demon man, and gave them their orders. Their mission was to find the blacksmith Eltz and bring her over to their cause. The two demons grinned with manic energy and pledged to obey the command. Back at her hidden cabin, Eltz resolved to gather more materials, hoping she would not encounter anyone this time. Her solitude was shattered by a sudden explosion that blasted her clear of her home. The two demons appeared before her, greeting the legendary blacksmith by name. She knew instantly that they were not players. The large demon asked if she understood why a monster like him had come for her. Before she could respond, he explained he carried a message from his master, Zell. From that day forward, she would serve him. The name was familiar to her. Zell was the player killer terrorizing the game world. The demon continued, describing Zell's ambition to transform the world into a better place, a goal that required superior equipment. She was to be the one to forge the weapons that would eliminate all who opposed them. Eltz did not look pleased. She opened her inventory and acknowledged the offer, but flatly refused to use her skills to create tools for slaughter. With that, she erected a massive wall of shields. The demon simply charged through it, shattering the barrier to pieces. When the dust settled, she was gone. She had tunneled through the earth, thinking to herself that she would never create weapons to help people kill one another, just as her party had been killed. Her escape was cut short when a hand punched through the ceiling of her tunnel, grabbing her and yanking her back to the surface. The large demon praised his partner, Enkidu, for the successful capture. He admitted Eltz's escape plan was impressive but futile. He noted how easily they had destroyed her hideout and reasoned that she was too clever to be left unrestrained. He declared he had an idea and plunged a dagger into her leg. He remarked that, as a blacksmith, she surely wouldn't miss her legs. As Enkidu held her down, the demon summoned a hammer, preparing to sever both of her limbs. Before he could strike, an arrow shot down from the mountaintop and slammed into his shoulder. The demon looked up in shock. It was Eltz's old party, led by the red-mohawked archer she had seen die. He informed the demon that there was no escape and that he should surrender. Eltz stared, completely bewildered by their impossible appearance. The demon laughed, mocking the humans for thinking they could win with superior numbers. He began to gather energy in his hand, telling Eltz to watch carefully and see what happens to those who defy Lord Zell. A gigantic sword materialized in the sky, its size dwarfing the entire forest. Eltz clutched her head, forced to witness the impending doom of the group that had just arrived to save her. They were about to be vaporized. She screamed for him to stop, promising to obey his every command. He turned to her and stated it was too late. The human group stared up at the sky, paralyzed and with nowhere to run. She screamed again in despair as the building-sized blade fell upon them. The demon laughed, remarking that it was a spectacular ending, but then he noticed something was wrong. He, the demon, had survived the impact, left with a single health point. Directly beneath the colossal sword, Naoki had blocked the full force of the attack. At the same time, Izayoi had used her teleportation magic to warp the other players to safety. Eltz recognized the pair, and the demon seemed to know of Naoki as well, identifying him as the person Zell had mentioned. Hearing that, Naoki demanded to know if the demon was an ally of Zell. Without waiting for a response, he grabbed the tip of the massive sword, smashed it, and hurled the fragment back at its creator. The demon, since it was his own magic, simply flicked his finger and altered the projectile's trajectory. The large demon commented on Naoki's insane endurance for surviving such a blow, but assumed he was now exhausted. Naoki countered that both he and Zell severely underestimated his strength. A small teleportation portal then appeared at Eltz's feet. The two demons were confused, knowing the bunny girl's magic was limited to short distances. The buff demon then realized the truth. Naoki's earlier attack was not an attempt to harm them, but a feint to create a distraction, allowing Izayoi to get close. She darted right between the two demons. Her plan was not over. She teleported in a flash, kicked the smaller demon girl, Enkidu, in the back, and dropped her to the ground. In a rapid sequence, all three girls were teleported together to another location. Now free, Eltz also sprang into action, pulling out a dagger and stabbing one of the demons. Enkidu found herself thrown directly into the middle of the waiting human party. The mohawk-wearing leader announced that the rescue mission was a success, revealing the coordinated plan. The large demon tried to pursue them, but Naoki nearly struck him in the head, reminding him that his opponent was right there. The demon looked forward to the reward Zell would give him for killing the boy. Meanwhile, the rest of the humans regrouped. The mohawk leader gave Rabiko a potion to restore her mana. Eltz then asked him why he was there with those two. He explained that he had been secretly watching over her since she left the group. They knew she was blaming herself for what happened and decided to protect her from a distance. Izayoi added that when they heard the explosions from the cave, they quickly formulated a plan to save her. Eltz was overcome with emotion, asking why they would go so far for someone who had pushed them away. The red mohawked man then delivered a heartfelt declaration, stating that her kindness, her smile, and her very existence were a source of hope for them all. Moved by his words, she apologized for running away without an explanation. He told her it was fine, and that when the game finally ended, they would visit the graves of their fallen comrades together. Their reunion was cut short when Enkidu appeared before them. The humans tensed. Izayoi knew the danger they were in. Enkidu was a level 70 demon, and as one of Zell's servants, her attacks were notoriously unpredictable. Initially, the plan seemed easy because they had the advantage of surprise. Now, facing a direct confrontation, Izayoi's insecurity returned. She considered running away. Looking at the others, she felt they were strong enough without her. Her low level would only be a hindrance if she stayed. The thought of fleeing screamed at her as the most logical course of action. But then, her expression hardened. She refused. She was tired of always running. Up to that point, Izayoi Rabiko's life had been a series of evasions. In school, she assumed she would never get into a good university, so she put in minimal effort. At university, she convinced herself it was acceptable to fail a few subjects, so she let her studies slide. When it was time to find a job, she found interviews too intimidating and settled for simple, low-stakes work. Even then, the smallest excuse, like a light rain, was enough for her to skip a shift. Seeking an easy path, she tried game streaming but never managed to get more than 53 viewers. During one stream, she quit a horror game out of fear, apologizing to her audience. They responded with scorn, pointing out that she always ran away and should try to finish something for once. She thought they were being unfair. The game was genuinely scary. She decided to try a more conventional game, Genesis Online, and ended up trapped like everyone else. She had always been a coward, and the death game only made it worse. She had met heroes like Naoki and Eltz, individuals who fought without retreating, a quality she felt she utterly lacked. Two players charged recklessly toward Enkidu. The Mohawk leader tried to warn them against attacking without a plan, but it was too late. Enkidu stated it was easier this way and thrust her hands through each of their chests. The two men fell, writhing on the ground as poison coursed through them. The demon explained that anyone who took even a single point of damage from her would die from her venom. Antidotes existed, but there was not enough time for them to work. Eltz identified their foe as the Poison Snake Princess, infamous for her unpredictable attacks and deadly poisons. Still, she noted, it was better than facing the even stronger Gilga. She remained unsure if they could win. Then she noticed Rabiko standing bravely, having stepped forward to lead the group. Enkidu stared her down. Rabiko raised a hand, then abruptly turned and sprinted away. Everyone was startled. The demon laughed at the pathetic but smart decision. It was a feint. Believing people don't change so easily was a mistake. She faked her retreat, opened a portal, and vaulted over Enkidu, telling herself that this time, she would only run if everyone else was running with her. After tackling the demon to the ground, she turned and screamed for everyone to attack. The entire group unleashed a barrage of weapons and projectiles. The demon could not react in time and was engulfed in a massive explosion. There was a moment of concern for Rabiko's safety. Something then came flying out of the smoke. It was Rabiko, crashing to the ground with only 49 HP left. Enkidu emerged from the blast, undergoing a transformation. Her latent power had activated, making her much stronger. She thanked them for forcing her into this form, which she claimed was perfect for slaughtering them all. Eltz recognized it as the demon's trump card, an ability that triggered when her HP fell below 30%. A timer with the number 300 appeared over Rabiko's body and began to count down. Enkidu explained that while in this form, anyone she attacked would die within 5 minutes. Eltz began to panic, thinking everyone would die because of her. But Rabiko stood firm, declaring that this time they would all survive together. She once again began to walk alone toward the boss. Watching her, Eltz closed her eyes, then called out for Rabiko to wait. Since the day her old party died, she had sworn her equipment would not be used for killing anymore. But things were different now. A system window appeared before Rabiko, asking if she wanted to receive the messenger's mantle. An elaborate sequence of flashing lights and spinning followed as the powerful armor equipped itself. Eltz stated that her items were meant to protect her companions. Rabiko was ecstatic, jumping around in amazement at the item she had received. The demon mocked them, saying it was good she had changed clothes for her own funeral, as she only had 248 seconds of life left. Rabiko tried to think of a plan while Eltz attempted to explain the armor's abilities, but Enkidu would not let them strategize. She charged straight at them. Eltz immediately activated a shield skill, trapping herself and the rest of the adventurers inside a protective barrier, leaving the newly armored Rabiko outside to face the demon alone. Enkidu tried to break through the shield barrier but could not. She began preparing a spell, creating a poison bomb in her hand. The shield started to melt under the assault, allowing the toxic gas to leak inside. The demon declared that everyone within would slowly be infected. Inside the dome, however, a series of shields formed a staircase, which Rabiko used to climb to a higher position. Enkidu asked if their little plan was ready. Rabiko ignored her, knocked an arrow, and fired. The demon caught the projectile with ease, mocking the pathetic trick. She was certain the girl possessed only magical abilities and no real offensive power. She leaped forward, announcing her disappointment in the lack of a real challenge. In the middle of her charge, Rabiko activated the ability of the Tsukuyomi mantle. She began to float, a luminous moon shining behind her. Before Enkidu could question this new form, the girl used a teleport skill. This was no ordinary teleport. She summoned countless portals across the battlefield, a feat made possible by the armor, which granted her infinite mana for 3 minutes. She bounced between the portals in a non-stop, chaotic sequence, her movements too fast for Enkidu to track. Enkidu calmed herself, reasoning that even if the girl was unpredictable, her attacks were too weak to matter. This was exactly what Rabiko anticipated. The erratic jumping was a distraction. She used the portals to reposition the entire party of adventurers, surrounding Enkidu from all sides. The demon realized she was trapped and had no escape. She cried out for Zell. A massive explosion erupted at the center of the battlefield. Shortly after, the remaining time on Rabiko's poison countdown vanished. The poison snake princess Enkidu had been defeated. The human players celebrated their victory, shouting and jumping. Elts came over to thank Rabiko, stating that none of them would have survived without her. Rabiko smiled, happy to hear the praise, but her focus immediately shifted. It was time to deal with Gilga. Naoki was still in the middle of his fight. Rabiko announced that since her armor's power was still active for a few more minutes, she was going to help him. In another part of the forest, Naoki's own ability was still active. He was certain that if he could land one clean hit, he would win. But his opponent, Gilga, floated in the air, surrounded by a swarm of deadly weapons, telling Naoki to come at him. The demon was confident that the boy would die the instant his desperate skill ended. With renewed courage, Naoki charged forward, aware that he was still at only 1 health point. The demon raised a hand, commending Naoki's bravery. One of the floating weapons shot toward him. He remembered how this attack had once frozen him with fear. He knew a single hit meant death, but he could no longer afford to hesitate. Gilga smiled and sent another wave of weapons. Naoki responded with a display of incredible agility, jumping over one attack, sliding under another, and dodging 2 at once. Gilga was stunned that he was evading everything. As Naoki closed the distance, he knew his only options were to dodge or die. He threw a handful of rocks at Gilga, but the demon easily blocked them with a sword. In that small moment of distraction, Naoki got behind him, aiming a blow directly at his head. Gilga grinned and summoned more weapons, trapping Naoki in an attack he could not possibly dodge. He realized he could not win this fight alone. Just then, Rabiko appeared, teleporting wildly. She dropped down next to Naoki and gave him a thumbs up. Gilga was confused, demanding to know what had happened to Enkidu. Rabiko coolly replied that she was defeated by the power of the moon. While the demon reeled from the news, he summoned even more weapons to attack them both. Rabiko stated she would not let that happen. She opened her portals, sucking all the weapons into them and sending them harmlessly into a void. Rabiko then told Naoki that her mana would remain infinite for at least 1 more minute. During that time, he did not need to worry. She would protect him. Naoki did not hesitate. The very next second, he charged forward. Gilga found the situation frustrating but was still certain he could not lose. It became easier for Naoki to dodge the attacks, but the risk remained absolute. He only needed to be hit once to die. Naoki was weaving from side to side, employing the same pattern they had used against Enkidu. At that moment, Gilga understood exactly how his partner had been defeated. He began smiling like a maniac, certain that he was stronger than her and would not lose to the same tactic. He knew that the only person with a significant attack was Naoki, so as long as the boy was kept at a distance, he would be fine. The next time Naoki attacked, Gilga just needed to dodge or strike first. He tracked Naoki's movements closely until the protagonist appeared directly behind him. Gilga smiled, sure he had anticipated the move. He knew Naoki would feint and then attack from the rear. He spun around and stabbed with all his might, but the blade passed through a clone. The demon was completely baffled as the illusion waved at him. From Gilga's blind spot below, the real Naoki surged upward to deliver the final blow. He remembered his conversation with Rabiko. Combining her clones and teleportations created a deadly combination. The hit connected with Gilga's midsection. As with the others, a direct hit from this power caused the monster to evaporate into nothing. At the same time, the rest of the adventurers were running toward them. They arrived just in time to see the clouds part and the sun shine down on Naoki, standing victorious. General Gilga had been defeated, and Naoki leveled up. Elts could not believe that the two of them had managed to beat such a powerful creature on their own. Rabiko was waving happily to the group when the protagonist began walking away. He went straight to Eltz and stood before her. He awkwardly apologized, admitting that he had neglected her feelings and how she must have felt after the demons killed his brother. At that, Rabiko blurted out that his brother was the hero king. Eltz thought for a moment, then quietly stated that she did not want anyone else to go through the same thing. That was why they had to stop Zell. Naoki then made his request, acknowledging it was selfish but asking her to join them. Rabiko expressed skepticism that she would agree so easily, but he insisted that her strength would be a great asset to the team. He also pointed out that if she continued to wander alone, she would be hunted by Zell and would likely lose her life. Eltz asked if he was truly sure he would not be defeated by Zell. The protagonist was confident. He guaranteed there was no way they would lose, and added that, in an emergency, Rabiko's escape skills could get them all to safety. Moved, Eltz turned to the group of adventurers and announced that for now, she would travel with these two. Together, they would stop the Demon King. The mohawk-wearing man protested that it was too dangerous, but Eltz bowed her head, stating that things would not get better until Zell was defeated. With their help, she was sure they could do it. The mohawk guy looked at his group, who all agreed with her decision, and relented. He walked up to Naoki, acknowledged his strength, and asked him to protect Eltz. Naoki gave him a nod and shook his hand, promising that Eltz would be safe with him. Back at the waterfall, Eltz turned and said she was leaving. Everyone wished her a safe journey as the new group of three disappeared over the horizon. The mohawk guy asked the people on the ridge to watch over them. Something was indeed watching from above, but it was a demon spy. The information was relayed to Zell, who was disappointed. In the end, neither Enkidu nor Gilga had been of any use. He lamented that he could not count on anyone, and would have to solve everything himself. He glanced to the side and asked for agreement from two humans, and a figure dressed in red who stood atop the mountain. Back with Naoki's group, Rabiko threw something on the ground that created a wall of smoke. It was not a new ability, but an item Eltz had made that perfectly fit her style. If she combined it with her clones and teleportations, she could perform incredible feats of misdirection. The bunny girls celebrated, knowing how useful it would be. They had also given her a flashbang. One toss on the ground lit up the entire forest. She was emotional, rubbing the new items on her face, unable to express her gratitude. Eltz told her there was no need for such thanks, and Naoki reminded them it was time to move forward. They needed to remember that Zell was a player too, and he was still evolving. They needed a drastic method to strengthen themselves if they hoped to defeat him. Eltz understood the problem. As they considered provoking other players for experience, Rabiko opened the system menu to check the player rankings. Her expression suddenly changed, and she urged the others to look. A report detailed a recent battle that had involved the three Norse gods, a trio of players ranked among the top 10 strongest in the entire game. Naoki asked what had happened. The scene shifted to a recording set in snowy mountains. There, Zell was lying defeated on the ground. The victorious warriors discussed how the player with the Demon King title was not as powerful as they had been led to believe. An old man ordered them to take Zell to Basilia prison while he was still weakened. Zell was not done. He started laughing from the ground before rising to his feet, declaring that he had been waiting for the chance to fight the strongest players. He even complimented Naoki, stating that the young tanker had given him more trouble. He casually cracked his neck, expressing his disappointment with the fight. The large warrior told him to stop making excuses, but the group's mage warned them to be careful. All of the wounds they had inflicted on Zell had already vanished. The Demon King told them their caution was irrelevant. The outcome would not change. Suddenly, a gigantic dragon appeared in the sky above them. At that point, the transmission cut out. Back in the present, a terrified Rabiko explained that those three top players were defeated in that battle and had been missing for the past 3 weeks. Eltz concluded that their own chances were impossible. If the best players in the game had failed, what could they possibly do? Naoki, however, remained optimistic. He argued that just because they were missing did not mean they were dead. He proposed that they go and rescue them. Eltz called the plan insane, but conceded that if they moved carefully, they might at least be able to find out what truly happened. He agreed, and their rescue mission began. They journeyed into the snowy mountains. Rabiko was freezing, her outfit offering almost no protection from the cold. Eltz handed out warm drinks to the two of them, saying it should help a little. She also commented on the strange lack of monsters in the area. Naoki saw this as a good thing, as it would allow them to move faster. It was then that they spotted a strange figure standing in the distance. They recognized him immediately. It was one of the top 3 players who had supposedly died, the one known as the cold-hearted Loki. Rabako started to wave a greeting, but Elt stopped her, sensing something was wrong. The man called out their names. He began preparing a spell in his hand and commanded them to kneel. Naoki barely managed to dive out of the way, pulling the 2 girls with him. The man warned them that they would all die in that place. The force of Loki's blast scoured the terrain, ripping away the snow and topsoil. A raw, dark gash was now torn across the white expanse. The protagonist stood before the man, who offered a cold statement. He expressed no personal grudge, but made it clear their deaths were certain. Energy began to coalesce once more in Loki's hand. Pinned against one of the game's top 10 players, the trio had no path of retreat. Eltz watched, her mind struggling to process the unprovoked hostility. She could not fathom why Loki was attacking them, or if he even recognized who they were. In a desperate attempt to de-escalate, Rabako stepped forward to speak, but another conjured attack from Loki cut her off. She sensed the immediate danger as the blast snaked toward her with incredible speed. With her teleportation magic, she warped herself and the others to a safer distance, escaping the strike just in time. Loki sighed, as if annoyed he had overlooked her ability. Gritting his teeth in fury, the protagonist shouted at Loki, demanding he at least listen to them. He yelled that their purpose there was to rescue him. Loki dismissed the words as a pity. He launched himself dozens of meters into the air, getting a clear view of the group. He announced that he had already sworn his allegiance to Lord Zell and was now under direct orders to eliminate them. The news struck Naoki with disbelief. 2 weeks earlier, an event had unfolded without his knowledge. The Nordic trio had battled relentlessly against a horde of beasts summoned by Zell. As their stamina dwindled, Zell floated above them. The old mage could not believe Zell was a player and not a true monster. His companions were at their limit. At that moment, Loki's eyes met Zell's. Positioned behind his 2 allies, he was in the perfect spot. He extended both hands and unleashed 2 lightning spells, striking his unsuspecting teammates from behind and giving them no chance to defend. Stunned, the mage instantly understood Loki's betrayal. The other companion was baffled, as attacks against allies were not supposed to function. They then watched as Loki left their party and approached Zell, offering his former comrades as pawns for the Dark Lord's use. Faced with this sudden treachery, Zell questioned Loki's plan. Loki knelt, explaining his motive was simple. He loved only victory and judged that he could not win alongside his old team. A bitter smile crossed Zell's face. He extended a hand overflowing with dark energy and cast a spell on Loki's former companions, slowly consuming them before the traitor's eyes. In an instant, the pair had been twisted into monstrous puppets, just like Gilga. Their appearance became that of humanoid abominations. Their eyes turned yellow as a third eye emerged on each of their foreheads. Their skin took on a decaying color, with horns and spikes breaking through their flesh. Having gained 2 new powerful servants, Zell thanked Loki, but had one more task for his new ally. Kneeling, Loki was ready to accept any command. The Dark Lord sent him a file. Zell explained its contents, a list of rebellious players. He ordered Loki to eliminate every person on that list, questioning if he could handle the mission. With a smile, he handed the task to Loki with a hint of suspicion. Closing the file, Loki stood up. His face was a blank mask, revealing he did not care about what had to be done. To him, attacking strangers like Naoki was a trivial matter. Wind and lightning energy flowed through his fingers as he prepared a new attack. Extending his hand, multiple spark bullets were launched toward the charging Naoki. Being attacked from a distance was already enraging the protagonist. Against these low-damage attacks, his skill would not activate, and his life would only be drained away. Loki stopped his assault after a while to speak. He pointed out Naoki's predicament, revealing he had studied his profile. He explained that to activate super endurance, Naoki needed to take a single lethal blow while his health was at 70% or more. And if that skill did not trigger, he could not use his trump card, Desperate Soul. Naoki's entire strategy was laid bare before him. Loki was purposefully using weak, chipping attacks to deny him the chance to unleash his full power. Having dissected that weakness, Loki turned his attention to Rabako, verbally dismantling her plan to use teleportation magic and diversionary tactics. He pointed out the messenger robe's 3-minute time limit. Finally, his gaze fell on Eltz, and he dismissed her mass weapon summoning as an easily blocked maneuver that lacked a decisive final blow. His voice was filled with contempt for what he perceived as their pathetic weakness. His cold, dead eyes offered them no hope. He stated that they could forget defeating Master Zell. In their current state, they could not even overcome him. He advised them to understand their position and accept their fate. As he finished speaking, he conjured multiple bolts of lightning, the crackling magic whipping the wind around his body. Naoki knew Loki's analysis was accurate, but he sensed something was missing. Frowning, he studied the high-level player, trying to decipher his true intentions. At the same time, Loki prepared his attack while shadowy creatures watched from behind nearby rocks, their sharp eyes ready for action. Ignoring the danger, Naoki charged Loki again. He leaped high into the air, aiming to strike him from above. With an unflustered expression, Loki sighed and waited for the boy to approach. Naoki's attack was about to connect when Loki simply sidestepped, evading it with ease. His calm gaze never wavered. At that moment, Eltz launched several weapons at Loki, which erupted in powerful explosions upon impact. Within seconds, Loki emerged from the smoke completely unharmed, realizing he had retreated directly into a portal. He was ensnared by the gateway and teleported, finding himself caught in a pincer. Eltz waited in front with a drawn bow, while Naoki attacked from behind, their movements coordinated by Rabako. Loki stopped both assaults simultaneously, catching the arrow in one hand and blocking Naoki's punch with the other. His expression was dark and somber, as he stated he could anticipate all their moves. Grabbing Naoki's fist, Loki squeezed it. His hand flared with green energy as he prepared a powerful skill. Naoki sensed the lethal intent and desperately reacted, escaping a deadly energy cannon just in time. Loki continued his psychological assault, mocking the uselessness of a warrior whose ultimate weapon was sealed away. He challenged Naoki to respond now that his strength had been nullified. Naoki frowned, processing Loki's words. A suspicion about his enemy's true objective began to form in his mind. He decided to test this new hypothesis. Surprising the two girls, he ran back to them, stopping to ask for their help with a test. He approached and whispered his plan. Rabako hesitated, worried about the outcome if his prediction was wrong. Eltz, however, saw no better alternative and agreed. With their support secured, Naoki gave the signal and charged Loki once more. Simultaneously, Rabako activated the messenger of Tsukuyomi's ability, and Eltz began summoning a massive arsenal of spears and axes. Within seconds, dozens of weapons materialized, the number growing exponentially. With the armory summoned, Rabako created a storm of magical portals that surrounded a momentarily confused Loki. Eltz commanded the weapons, launching them into the gateways. A true vortex of blades descended upon Loki from every direction. He anticipated Naoki would use the chaos to attack, dismissing the strategy as mediocre. In an instant, his energy surged, exploding outward in a dome that annihilated all the incoming weapons, leaving a graveyard of twisted metal. Having deflected the attack, Loki looked around for their next move, but was shocked to see Naoki already leaping at him. The boy was down to a single hit point. His super resistance had been activated. Loki's eyes widened in disbelief. He realized Naoki had not been trying to attack him at all. He had used the Blade Storm on himself, intentionally taking catastrophic damage to finally trigger his ability. Loki could not believe someone would have the courage for such a self-destructive gambit just to activate Desperate Soul. It was the desperate act of someone willing to sacrifice everything for a single chance at victory. A surge of energy coalesced around the protagonist's fist. In the same instant, Rabako's magic tore open two portals, one at Naoki's position, the other directly in front of Loki. Before the traitor could process the tactic, Naoki burst from the second gateway, his fist a burning projectile. Loki's eyes widened at the incandescent blur screaming toward him. Naoki channeled all his might into the blow aimed at his opponent's face. At the last possible fraction of a second, Loki reacted, stepping back just as the fist missed by a hair's breadth. The attack, failing to find its target, slammed into the snowy ground, unleashing a violent explosion of energy that carved a long, deep trench into the earth. Loki stared silently at the chasm beside him. In that moment, the brilliant aura around Naoki flickered out. His desperate soul ability had expired. With his power gone, the protagonist faced Loki. His expression changed. He stated that Loki's attacks had felt less like attempts to kill and more like a form of guidance. a test. Loki closed his eyes at the comment and gave a signal. From behind the rocks and snow, a group of figures emerged, landing before the trio. Loki confirmed Naoki's suspicion was correct. A diverse collection of players stood before them, whom Loki introduced as the Twilights. A ninja named Sasuke, the vice commander, was presented first, followed by a theatrical shadow sorcerer called Jack, and an energetic mage named Arlora, among many others. When a surprised Naoki questioned their identity, Loki simply sent him a data file. As he read it, his eyes widened in shock. Loki explained that the file was the execution list of rebels provided by King Zell, and that these players were all on it. The implication hit Rabiko and Eltz with astonishment. Eltz quickly understood. Loki had betrayed Zell. The realization that he was a double agent left Naoki speechless. Loki sighed and confirmed their suspicions, recounting the day his Nordic team was defeated by Zell. He had recognized their inevitable demise and chose a different path to avoid it. He faked a betrayal of Odin and Thor, allowing Zell to turn them into monsters, a state he believed was reversible. This act set him on a secret path to find a cure. A high-level dungeon eventually rewarded him with a unique skill he called Zero Reset, an ability capable of undoing all effects, including the monster transformation. He revealed he was its only user. Zell's hit list, intended as a tool for murder, had become Loki's instrument for building a resistance. He used it to contact players, recruiting the strong and hiding the weak. He concluded by explaining that he had tested the trio to gauge their potential, noting their skills but lack of experience. He declared himself a man motivated solely by victory, willing to ally with anyone and use any trick to achieve it. Since a victory with Zell offered nothing in the real world, the Demon King had to be defeated. Recognizing Naoki's one-hit kill power as a crucial asset, he extended his hand, formally asking them to lend their strength to his cause. Eltz smiled in acceptance, and Rabiko enthusiastically agreed. Naoki confirmed their entry into the new alliance and moved forward to shake Loki's hand. Before they could seal the pact, a surprise attack struck the double agent's arm. In disbelief, Loki watched his character's hand drop to the ground like a disconnected mannequin part. At that moment, a dark voice resonated from the sky, acknowledging his attempt to cut ties and calling it a great misfortune. Hearing the sound, both Loki and Naoki looked up. The all-powerful Dark King Zell had appeared once again, overflowing with a menacing energy. He smiled sarcastically, stating that whatever Loki had been planning, his game was now over. The entire Twilight group stared upward, their faces a mask of shock and disbelief. Gritting her teeth, Eltz glared at the sky, as did Rabiko, whose jaw hung open. Naoki's expression was one of pure fury, his narrowed gaze locked on the Dark King. Zell responded to the silent challenge by scratching his temple for a second, as if composing a witty remark. He then looked mockingly at Naoki, asking if he was interested in experiencing the worst possible fate. All of them, Rabiko, Eltz, Loki, and Naoki, stared at the diabolical player hovering in the air. Above them, a tremendous dark fissure tore through the sky and clouds, the very world splitting apart to accommodate Zell's arrival. Overflowing with power, Zell sighed, announcing that he had been waiting quite a while to see them all. At the sight of the player who attacked others indiscriminately, Eltz seethed with rage. Rabako could not believe he had appeared at this exact moment, her shock so great that her bunny ears drooped. Hovering in the air, Zell spread his arms wide, declaring that he had patiently waited for this opportunity. He then directed his attention to Naoki, maliciously pointing out that his desperate soul ability could no longer be activated. With a venomous look, he revealed his true intentions. The clever blacksmith immediately understood his plan. Zell had purposefully taken advantage of the cooldown on Naoki's ability, preventing him from using his most powerful skill. Realizing he had fallen into the trap set by such a malevolent being, the protagonist gritted his teeth in irritation. Eltz glanced at Loki with a flicker of suspicion. It was difficult not to think he might have orchestrated this. She quickly dismissed that possibility, however, since Zell had just attacked him. With false melancholy, Zell began to complain about Loki's betrayal, lamenting that he thought he had finally found a true friend. He then gestured to the severed limb, pointing out that by making him lose his hand, all of Loki's efforts to reverse the monsterization were now worthless. The trio was surprised. Not understanding what he meant, Eltz demanded clarification. Loki gritted his teeth, irritated that the Dark Lord had discovered his entire plan. With nowhere left to hide, he revealed the truth. Zero Reset was a magic that removed abnormal effects by touching a person with the user's hand. The ability could only be used with one arm, and it was housed precisely in the hand that had just been taken from him. Still, Loki was confident they could reverse the situation. He believed a high-level healing magic would make it possible to reattach his hand. To buy the necessary time, Loki asked Naoki to create a diversion. Zell smiled upon hearing the plan. It was obvious he would not allow them to act freely. In an instant, his four hands began to move, weaving together in sinister gestures. Confused, the protagonist looked up, trying to decipher what Zell was preparing. A zone of darkness then appeared at their feet, a spiral of shadow energy that consumed the snow around them. Looking down, they were surprised as the darkness glowed, and in the next moment, transformed into a gateway. The door opened beneath them, casting the entire group into an abyss with no way to hold on as they fell indiscriminately. As they plummeted, Zell smiled maliciously from above, welcoming them to the underworld castle he had prepared. While falling from a dizzying height, Naoki looked down. He could see that there really was a castle below, just as Zell had said, guarded by a magic circle with lava pouring from its entrance into a bottomless chasm. From the sky, Zell watched all the players fall toward the structure. As they neared the ground, a flash of light exploded, enveloping each of them. The protagonist landed on a floor of red tiles. He was not hurt by the fall, but was surprised as he looked around. Rabako, who had also fallen inside the castle, was desperately searching for the others. Like her, Eltz was looking for their companions, but found no one. They had all been separated. Looking around more carefully, the protagonist realized he was not alone. Several monsters from the depths appeared, from deformed humanoids to fierce wolves. He gritted his teeth, understanding the problem before him. Just as everyone had been cast into the castle, so too had Loki's lost hand. He himself was trembling in pain, gritting his teeth as he saw who stood before him. Zell was there, accompanied by none other than his two old partners, the monstrous Thor and Odin. The Dark Lord sarcastically suggested that this time, they would have a nice friendly chat and truly open their hearts to one another. Faced with the nefarious intentions of that being, the injured Loki found himself in a desperate situation, but he did not intend to stay still. He quickly jumped away, determined to live. Extending the only hand he had left, he gathered all his energy into a sphere of green light. However, before he could launch the attack, something hit him. Loki fell to the ground, his body torn apart. While Odin's trident still glowed with residual energy, Zell thanked him for helping Loki open his heart. He noted that the traitor was still breathing, but, in the best-case scenario, only had a few minutes left. Zell approached the part of Loki's body closest to him and asked if there was anything else he wanted to say. As Loki's consciousness began to slip away, his mind retreated to his past, to his life before the game. He saw himself on a soccer field and wondered if he had truly changed at all since that time. The memory started with him in possession of the ball, driving a counterattack. He sent a direct pass to his striker, who controlled it, prepared his stance, and unleashed a powerful shot toward the opposing goal. A rival defender stretched out a leg in a desperate attempt to deflect it, but failed. The goalkeeper, however, was ready. With a great horizontal leap, he extended his arm and palmed the ball away just as it was about to enter the upper corner of the net. The saved ball dropped to one of his team's defenders. The player calmly brought the ball under control with his chest, preparing to launch a new play. Immediately, Loki shouted for his team to retreat and apply pressure between the attacking lines. Before his team could get back into a defensive formation, that same defender launched a long ball straight into the attack, mirroring the play Loki himself had just made. The powerful kick sailed toward the penalty area. Loki instantly sprinted back, tracking the opposing striker. The attacker skillfully cushioned the ball with his back, guiding it down to his ankle for perfect control. With the ball at his feet, he blew past Loki without losing momentum and headed directly for the goal. Loki gritted his teeth. His misjudgment was about to cost them a goal. At that moment, a young blonde player yelled with fury as he rushed forward. He slid in using the sole of his cleat to execute a perfect tackle, knocking the ball away from the opponent. Loki knew the player who recovered the ball well. It was David. Wasting no time, David started a new counterattack alongside Loki. He advanced down the field with incredible speed, weaving through the defenders in his path and closing in on the enemy's penalty area. Having dribbled past the entire defense, David found himself one-on-one with the goalkeeper. They locked eyes, David's determination unflinching. With a wide motion, he faked a shot, but instead used his other foot to slide the ball sideways. The unexpected move sent the goalkeeper off balance. When he looked to the side, another player already had the ball. Loki now had possession with the goal wide open. He looked down at the ball, then raised his eyes to the vast, undefended space in the net. With a powerful shot, he sent the ball into the corner, far beyond the goalkeeper's reach. After so many reversals, they could finally celebrate the goal and their victory. Loki held a great affection for David Bellingham, his partner and best friend, a person he deeply admired. Back in the locker room, they both sighed, reflecting on how close they had come to defeat. With an animated expression, David reassured his friend, telling him to never worry. His crisis was also David's crisis, and they would always help each other survive. A promise of mutual survival cemented their bond. David's belief in friendship, combined with his incredible personality and immense talent, propelled him to new heights. He was quickly noticed by professional scouts and stood on the verge of becoming a football star. But just as he was about to achieve his dream, a tragic accident occurred. A violent play from an opponent resulted in an anterior cruciate ligament rupture. The severe injury forced David into a long and difficult recovery period. Months later, a deep anguish took hold of him, trapping him inside his own room. Loki, wanting to encourage his friend, decided to make the team strong while waiting for his return, believing this was the best way to help him. He dedicated himself to improving, becoming stronger, and relentlessly striving for victory, as nothing else seemed meaningful. This win-at-all-costs mindset eventually changed him, poisoning his relationships with his teammates. By the time he realized how far he had gone, it was already too late. His obsession with winning had shattered the team's harmony. He could not fill the void David had left, and the team ultimately collapsed. Loki received offers from various other teams, but ended up abandoning soccer altogether. Even after many years, only the obsession with victory remained inside him, a mentality that stayed trapped in his soul, even during casual games. It was this obsession that allowed him to survive after entering the death game. Loki wanted to win, but given his current situation, he accepted that someone else would have to win for him. This time, he wanted the victor to be someone who reminded him of David. As David's image appeared in his mind, another emerged alongside it. Naoki, a young man he had just met, who possessed the same willpower he had so admired in his old friend. He mentally entrusted the future to him. Seeing Loki's silent farewell, Zell found him pathetic. As a final mocking gesture of respect, he prepared to deliver the finishing blow. But before he could launch his attack, a clenched fist slammed against his cheek. The Dark Lord suffered a critical hit, caught completely by surprise by Naoki, and was thrown to the other side of the room. Zell bounced several times on the floor before finally skidding to a halt. Rubbing his cheek, he gritted his teeth in irritation. Loki lifted his head, shocked to see the man who was about to finish him off thrown so far away. At that moment, several magical teleportation portals opened throughout the hall. The entire Twilight team passed through them, joining Naoki for the battle to come. In an instant, the room was filled. On one side stood Zell and Loki's two monstrous friends. On the other stood Naoki and all the members of the Twilight, those whom Loki had gathered to fight against Zell. A healer immediately rushed to Loki's side and began using healing magic. Another teammate hurried to find more help, confirming that Loki was still alive and calling for a Terraqua juice. Seeing the crowd of players that had suddenly appeared, Zell demanded to know what was happening. He could not understand how so many had assembled so quickly. Blaming Naoki for the development, he frowned and questioned what the boy had done. At that moment, the sound of wooden clogs echoed through the hall. A girl with long golden hair surrounded by a shining aura appeared, immediately catching Zell's eye. Rabako stood before him, a confident look on her face, ready to answer. Looking directly into the chaotic player's eyes, Rabako's demeanor suddenly shifted to an extremely lively personality. She began hopping and shouting, taking all the credit for solving everything and telling everyone to celebrate. The protagonist sighed, watching her abandon her cool facade the moment she opened her mouth. The bunny mage, however, was too excited to contain her celebration. She marveled at her own awakening in the middle of a crisis, wondering if she should be the protagonist of the story. The protagonist sighed again, leaving her to her daydreams. Hearing the girl speak of her awakening, Zell frowned. Wrapped in an intense aura, the girl assumed a tone of superiority before the Dark Lord, calling her new ability the power of a protagonist. Rabako then remembered how she had been isolated and trapped, targeted by countless monsters. With a determined look, she had made her move. She immediately fled, leaving the monsters behind and crying miserably for not being able to do anything alone. As always, she kept running until a notification window appeared before her eyes. Glancing at it, she was extremely surprised. The number of her escape attempts had exceeded 10,000, activating a secret skill. She could not believe she had obtained such an ability, something until then only Naoki possessed. A new notification appeared, revealing the skill's name, Rabbit Dart. It was an ability that quadrupled movement speed. Combining this with her other blessings, Izayoi Rabako's legs became faster than sound. Furthermore, Rabbit Dart had another function. Its effect could be shared with anyone she touched. That was how she managed to gather all their comrades and reach the hall where Zell was. She was deeply proud of what she had accomplished. Hearing the story of 10,000 escapes, Zell burst into laughter. He could not imagine a more embarrassing awakening. Seeing Zell's reaction, the protagonist warned him that his laughter would not last long. The monsters were left behind, and their own numbers were now few. With his allies, Rabako, the blacksmith Eltz, and the now recovered Loki, by his side, Naoki felt a surge of confidence that they would crush Zell once and for all. The Dark King fell silent upon hearing the challenge. He pondered for a moment, then sarcastically questioned if Naoki truly believed that. With a shrug, he reminded him of his ability to turn others into puppets with a single touch. He then posed a question. If he possessed such a power, why would he have eliminated the Hero King? Was he afraid that, like with Loki, the situation could be reversed? Had Naoki thought that maybe that was a terrible decision? Naoki was confused by Zell's words, not understanding why he had brought up his brother. Zell put a hand over his face, hiding his laughter. He revealed there was a real reason for his actions, and told Naoki not to dare blink. Before his eyes, Zell cast a forbidden spell, Metamorph. Naoki was stunned, and shock quickly took over his gaze. He could not believe what he was seeing. Before him, Zell had transformed into his brother, a dark, evil version of him. The protagonist was speechless, not knowing what to say or how to react. His companions were also surprised and disbelieving to see the form of the Hero King. Even Loki could not believe what he was witnessing. Zell laughed maliciously at the expression on Naoki's face. He explained that this was why he had ended him. The ability allowed him to transform into any player he eliminated. In the next moment, a sword appeared in his hand. He did not just copy the appearance, but also all the abilities. Brandishing the sword, he unleashed a powerful and dark attack. Outside the castle, the peace was shattered by the impact. From the castle's interior to the region where the lava fell into the abyss, everything was sliced by that strike. The castle's structure was shaken. Rocks and walls began to crack and crumble one after another, turning what was already a grim place into a scene of pure despair. As the castle began to collapse, the players fell along with it. Naoki did not care about what was happening around him, his anger preventing him from stopping his curses against Zell. He raged at the bastard for destroying the whole place. Quickly, everything and everyone plummeted toward the abyss. As he fell, Naoki could not help but look up. Floating above them, watching the fall, was Zell, still transformed into the character of his brother, sneering with his eyes. As they continued to fall, Loki was the first to notice something different. Looking down, he realized they were rapidly approaching the ground. This meant that if they did not do something in time, the impact of the fall would kill all the players. While Loki worried, a glow appeared behind him. Using the power in her legs, granted by her awakened speed, Rabiko began leaping from rubble to rubble in midair. Quickly, she conjured several portals, rushing toward each player. The first one she grabbed was Loki himself, who had not even noticed when she appeared by his side. Rabiko kept jumping from debris to debris, next grabbing the blacksmith Eltz, and finally, Naoki. Seconds later, loud explosions echoed as the castle debris hit the barren ground. The stones smashed into the earth, and the power slowing them began to dissipate. Zell landed on the ground a few seconds later. With a confused look, he surveyed the surroundings. Seeing that everyone seemed fine, he questioned if they had really all survived. He then looked in Rabako's direction. Her repeated use of her speed ability to save everyone had been impressive. At first, he had thought his only problem would be facing Naoki, but that girl named Izayoi Rabiko was starting to annoy him as well. Rabako was exhausted from having used the awakened ability for so long. The effect of the skill began to fade, her awakened form dissipating. This became clear when her hair, once long and golden, returned to its short white form. Eltz was surprised to see Rabako exit her awakened form, realizing the duration of her skill had come to an end. Rabako apologized, saying she could not help anymore, as Tsukuyomi's blessing had also ended. Seeing how tired she was, Eltz did not mind, and just asked Rabako to rest. Loki thanked Rabako. It was thanks to her that everyone had survived, avoiding total annihilation. However, there was a problem. All the monsters that had been lost were now gathered with them. Additionally, there was Zell, who had obtained the power of the Hero King. Loki knew that Naoki and Rabako needed to wait at least 10 minutes for their skill cooldowns to reset. Also, no one had yet managed to free the monsters using the Zero Reset skill. Facing an army of enemies, Loki felt hopeless, but the Victory Addict knew the battle was not over yet, mainly because he was betting on Naoki. Out of the corner of his eye, Loki glanced at the boy, hoping he had already reacted. Just as Loki expected, Naoki ground his teeth furiously. Hatred completely consumed him. Instantly, he stood up and charged at Zell. He screamed that they had been underestimated for too long, but before his charge could gain momentum, Loki grabbed him. He warned the boy that acting on impulse was exactly what their enemy wanted. He understood the feeling, but insisted that he calm down. Naoki could not comply. He raged, questioning how he could possibly be calm when that thing was making a mockery of his brother's memory. It was more than he could bear. Loki understood his feelings, but reminded him that he was the trump card for all the players and needed to remain composed. Approaching the protagonist, Loki spoke quietly, directing Naoki's attention to Zell's body. He pointed out that he used to have 4 arms but now had only 2, and that other features were also gone. He asked if Naoki understood the implication. Hearing the question, the protagonist paused to think before answering. He realized that Zell could now only use the abilities the Hero King had, not the powers he possessed in his original form. Loki confirmed this possibility. If they were right, they actually had a real chance to win. They no longer needed to worry about their allies being turned into monsters, and could now use Zero Restoration to weaken Zell's forces. But Naoki was not sure how they could fight someone who had completely destroyed a castle. Then someone stepped between them and placed a hand on Naoki's shoulder. With a sharp look, Eltz volunteered. She would do it. As long as she could hold Zell off, everyone else could focus on their tasks. Naoki wanted to refuse, believing it was far too dangerous. She reminded him that his own situation was also dangerous, and that after Loki, she was the highest level player there. With a scrutinizing look, Loki asked if Eltz actually stood a chance. She did not have a definite answer. Her chances were not 0, but she did not want to think about that now. She wanted to make a plan. Loki was to focus on freeing Odin and Thor. Naoki and Rabako were to stay alive until their strength returned. With a worried look, Rabako responded, telling Eltz to stay alive too. Eltz smiled confidently at her friend, assuring her she would. Without hesitation, Eltz ran towards Zell. She had gained 2 new friends, and everyone else had risked their lives to protect her. Now, she wanted to do the same. Circling around Zell, Eltz introduced herself. With a bored look, Zell swung the sword in his hand. With a single motion that seemed simple, a powerful ranged attack was launched at her location. The sudden strike worried Rabako, Naoki, and Loki, who tried to see what was happening through the cloud of smoke. After his attack connected, Zell mocked the blacksmith, dismissing her arrogance and calling her a small fish. When the dust from the impact started to clear, however, Eltz was gone from that spot. She had repositioned with incredible speed, materializing behind Zell in an instant to land a blow with her sword. The strike landed precisely on the transformed player's shoulder, a hit so effective it nearly disabled him. Zell frowned, glancing over his shoulder to see Eltz holding a long katana, now fully clad in her combat equipment. Prepared for the fight, she stared down the villain from a distance. The life that her companions had protected would now be used to protect them in return. She met Zell's blade with her own. The villain laughed, amused by her seriousness. The impact of their swords unleashed a powerful shockwave, like a star exploding. Naoki watched in surprise. Eltz was matching Zell blow for blow. Beside him, Rabako, mouth open, commented on how cool she looked. After the initial exchange, they leaped apart. With a smile, Zell hid his surprise. He had assumed Gilga and the others were just average players. He inspected the blacksmith from a distance, guessing some special property of her gear was at play. She wore the Dress of Ruin, an armor set that adjusted her defense and speed to match the values of the closest foe. In other words, Eltz now possessed the same defensive and speed stats as Zell in his Hero King form. This allowed her to advance on him without fear. As the blacksmith charged, Zell scoffed and swung his sword. Eltz dodged the attack, vaulting over him. She pulled a large shield from her inventory and, holding it before her, plummeted towards Zell like a meteor burning through the sky. With the momentum from the fall, Eltz delivered a crushing blow that Zell could not avoid. In addition to the massive damage, he was also afflicted with a status ailment, which irritated him further. The impact made him realize her sword also had a unique property. The katana she wielded was the Holy Sword White Knight, and its effect reduced an opponent's stats by 10% with each successful hit. Additionally, her career as the actress Tsubasa Yamaha had equipped her with real-world skills: proficiency in action sequences, mastery of combat choreography, 9 months of kendo, self-defense training, and experience in various other arts. Eltz combined superior equipment with actual combat experience, and above all, an unwavering determination. At that moment, she had become the most skilled fighter present on the battlefield. While Eltz confronted the main villain, other battles raged across the mountainous plains. The monsters Zell had created attacked the players with their claws and fangs. However, some players were strong enough to fight back. Loki struck the back of one of the monsters, releasing a large amount of energy with his Zero Reset ability. The monster's body began to transform as its monstrous features were undone, little by little revealing the human player within. The human saved by Loki was surprised to regain consciousness, looking at his own hands in confusion. Now that Loki had saved the last of the normal humans, he turned his cold gaze in one direction. Only 2 monsters remained for him to cure and return to their human forms, his former teammates. One of the Norse lords raised his muscular arms, unleashing large amounts of lightning. At the same time, Odin raised his staff, creating a powerful fireball. Thor launched a torrent of lightning, while Odin fired his powerful attack, both aiming for Loki. Being close to the other players, Loki grabbed them and pulled them away from the double assault. Fire and lightning passed within a few meters of them, thanks to his quick action. He clicked his tongue, complaining about their large-scale abilities. Despite the great danger posed by his companions' attacks, Loki could not use his trump card while trying to devise a strategy to capture Zell. At that moment, a twist occurred in the main battle. Eltz suffered a powerful blow, being thrown across the battlefield until she fell heavily onto the dirt ground. Worried about her friend, Rabiko cried out desperately. Eltz, having taken an absurd amount of damage, sat up with difficulty. Arrogant, Zell scoffed. He declared that she had done well, but her equipment's durability was low and she could not push herself any further. He mocked her, saying that the skills she had picked up in the real world were useless here, and that their levels of resolve were worlds apart. As he stared at Eltz, Zell noticed something that caught his attention. All his enemies were conveniently gathered together like insects in an anthill. He decided to end the fight as he was starting to get bored. A large amount of lightning energy surged from his dark sword. He raised it, smiling maliciously, and announced his intention to erase all of them at once. Like a lord of the skies, Zell created a storm of lightning that dominated that world. Before the powerful attack could form, Loki hastily raised his hand, trying to erect a barrier. Using his sword, Zell unleashed his powerful attack, the Absolute Lightning. Gritting his teeth in worry, Loki pulled back his hands and used one of his tricks, selecting an option to freeze the enemy's forces for 3 seconds. Zell was surprised to feel his movement suddenly incapacitated. Loki had immobilized him. However, the 3 seconds passed quickly, and Zell could launch the attack again, completing it. The blow fell like a bolt from the heavens, destroying everything in its path. A large smoke curtain formed after the impact. Zell expected to see his enemies destroyed when it dissipated, but what he saw was unexpected. Thor had created a shield, blocking Zell's attack. Beside him, Odin used his staff to strengthen it. A contemptuous smirk crossed Zell's face as he deciphered Loki's gambit. The 3-second pause had been just enough time to reverse the monster transformation on his former allies. They were themselves again, their natural resistances restored. Thor to lightning and Odin to the barrier's magic. Zell remained unimpressed, pointing out that both of them, along with Eltz, were clearly on their last legs. The maneuver had taken its toll. The effort had left Loki drained of both physical stamina and mental energy. Shaken, he planned to use his ability to inflict damage on Zell. He knew there was no better time for it, but also understood that he would not be able to use magic for some time. Still, he felt relieved that they had managed to escape the attack, even if barely. It was at that instant, right after avoiding disaster, that a counter reached its end. Eltz, still exhausted, expressed her trust in her friends. Loki shared the sentiment, leaving the rest to them. Amidst the remaining smoke, a glow appeared around Rabako. Similarly, a power awakened in Naoki's hand. Upon realizing the duo's plan, Zell smiled, scoffing that the useless lot should just fall. That was what Naoki thought of his brother. He focused his mind, vowing to Hiroki that he was going to end this. Zell descended from the heavens to face Naoki head-on. With power in his hands and Rabako's help, the protagonist was ready. The memory of Hiroki still lingered in his mind. His younger brother's smile remained vivid in his thoughts. Sadness gave way to determination in the protagonist's eyes. His hatred for Zell had not faded one bit. To ensure everyone's protection, and so there were no more victims like Hiroki, he would defeat Zell today, here, no matter what. Clenching his fist, Naoki showed his resolve. Even through a disdainful gaze, Zell could perceive a spark of defiance in his enemy's eyes. He analyzed his adversaries. Rabako had recovered her ability, and both she and Naoki were at full strength, while his own stats had been diminished by Eltz. Zell knew that on the surface, the duo seemed to have the upper hand, but he did not believe the situation had fundamentally changed. Everything would be decided in a single exchange. Even with reduced stats, he was confident he could defeat both with one blow. While Rabako and Naoki were still speaking, Zell prepared to attack. Unexpectedly, Rabako hugged Naoki's neck and climbed onto his back. Using him as a mount, she voiced her concern about whether he could still move effectively. He affirmed that he was fine, and simply reminded her not to fall. Determined to hold on, Rabako nodded. Now that the duo was literally united, they were ready to face Zell. The villain vanished in a flash of light. Immediately, Naoki also moved, accelerating rapidly toward Zell. He remembered the first time he had faced him, a day when he could not even react to the enemy's speed. Although he was not yet as fast as Rabako, her power now allowed him to move faster than Zell. Naoki owed this opportunity to both Eltz and Rabako. Even seeing Naoki's superior speed, Zell trusted his combat experience to give him an advantage. He knew that a slight pause of tenths of a second always followed an attack. He planned to use this window to read his opponent's movements and deliver a winning counterblow. For Zell, the only real problem was their attack strategy. He knew Rabako was just a distraction. The real danger lay in the combination of teleportation magic and clones. These two abilities formed the core of his enemy's tactics. Using teleportation to strike from blind spots was a basic move. It could also be used as a feint to attack from another direction. There was also the possibility of using teleportation with clones to create confusion and launch a third, real attack. Zell, however, believed that only novices would fall for tricks with clones. With his experience, he confidently devised a plan. To Rabako's surprise, Zell stopped his advance and retreated. Naoki, however, had anticipated such a move. The enemy then created a defensive formation, summoning several dark skeletons. Although he could no longer use his own character's powers, Naoki believed the villain was still capable of controlling the monsters he had summoned earlier. Zell's plan was to limit his enemy's movement options to 3 directions, preventing them from moving freely. He spread the monsters to block their tactics. With his enemies surrounded, Zell was confident that he could only be attacked after the monsters were defeated, an opening he intended to use to strike. Clinging to Naoki, Rabako gave him a warning. The protagonist knew exactly what she was thinking and declared that he was going to end it all. In seconds, dozens of teleportation portals appeared above Zell. Seeing the portals, the villain waited for the attack, trying to track each opening and guess where the true blow would come from. Just as he imagined, several Naokis leaped from each of the portals. Zell thought the enemy was foolish for appearing from all directions at once. He swung his sword in a wide arc, eliminating several copies simultaneously. Whether false or real, an area attack would destroy everything. As he defeated the copies, Zell noticed something unexpected. One of the destroyed images had been holding a small golden sphere. The sphere dropped to the ground, shining like a small sun. Immediately, Zell commanded one of his monsters to jump in front of the object. The ball of light acted like a blinding grenade. Zell squinted, cursing the distraction. He was unaffected thanks to the monster that blocked the effect. Before he could realize it, a new sphere was thrown in his direction. A smoke bomb completely covered the combat area. This new attack left Zell confused and worried, wondering if the light bomb was just a feint for this real attack. His fury overflowed in a scream. As he ranted, Naoki emerged from a portal above him, descending like a meteor with a clenched fist. The protagonist had waited for this moment. He had discovered a secret escape route Zell had left for unexpected situations and used it as an attack point. Amidst the charge, Naoki yelled that this was the end. A gigantic explosion occurred on impact, like a new supernova. Everyone on the battlefield observed the blast, trying to discern amidst the light what had happened. A curtain of smoke covered the long-awaited result. Inside it, Naoki stared at Zell lying on the ground. The villain's health points had plummeted, with only 27 remaining out of the more than 4,000 he possessed. Everyone looked at his health bar as the smoke dissipated. Many were shocked by the result. Further ahead, Loki commented on Naoki's calmness, noting that even in a critical moment, he chose not to finish off his opponent. Eltz was excited to see Zell on the ground. Almost in tears, Rabako celebrated their victory. All around, players erupted in celebration, hugging, jumping, and crying. Happiness, relief, and all kinds of positive emotions were etched on their faces. With a smile, Naoki watched his people celebrate. However, at that moment, something unexpected happened. He heard Zell's laughter. Even fallen, the villain could still smile. Zell found the situation truly unexpected, never imagining that two useless people he had met at rock bottom would manage to force him to this point. Naoki grew tired of the enemy's words, telling him to shut up. He stated that Zell was now restricted and would be judged and condemned in the real world. Naoki's words sounded like a joke to Zell, who laughed animatedly. He found the idea of being judged amusing. Looking directly at the protagonist's face, he revealed that he was still surprised by one thing: their ignorance. He questioned if they knew that Dark Kings, in fact, possessed a second form. Surprised by the revelation, Naoki tried to attack him quickly, attempting to finish him off for good. However, before the blow reached him, Zell murmured a spell, Forbidden Magic Evolution. A look of pure shock appeared in the protagonist's eyes. He watched, powerless, as a gigantic dark being with an eye on its chest rose to the heavens like a true conqueror. That creature had skeletal arms, along with a skull on its lower body. On its head, where the true Zell was, were two pairs of horns and dark wings on its back, in addition to the gigantic eye on its chest. Rabako was shocked to see the new transformation, unable to believe it was happening. With his forbidden ability, Zell had absorbed all his subordinate monsters, transforming them into his own strength. Loki could not believe that, after everything they had faced, the battle still was not over. Zell clearly heard Loki's complaint, retorting that the battle would end very soon for all of them. The colossal creature extended its skeletal hand towards Loki and his group, who seemed like ants before it. Rabako was terrified by the movement. Quickly, she created a trail of portals traveling to the group to save them. The giant hand fell to the ground, causing an enormous earthquake. Thanks to Rabako, everyone managed to cross the portals in time, escaping the attack. Loki could hardly believe that Zell had caused so much damage with just one arm movement. The true Zell was positioned above the head of the creature he had created. From there, he mocked their running, questioning how long they could last and stating he could swat flies all day. Bored, Zell made the lower skull of his new body open its mouth, gathering a large amount of dark energy. The skull was preparing a blast that could erase an entire existence. Naoki, in an attempt to stop him, attacked with his hand overflowing with energy. He hit the side of the creature, destroying both the prepared attack and part of the monster. However, the creature soon regenerated, as if the blow had caused no damage. Seeing the despair in Naoki's eyes, Zell mocked him. He admitted his attacks were dangerous, but destroying parts of his body no longer left wounds. He told him to sit there like a baby and watch the end of all those he tried to protect. Immediately, Zell's creature prepared a new, even more powerful attack, launching a devastating beam of energy towards Rabako, Eltz, Loki, and all the others. Desperate, Naoki ran towards his team. At that instant, a light appeared in the distant sky. Zell's attack devastated the area, but something appeared before it hit the ground, saving everyone. Rabako was shocked to see where she was. A large flying ship had appeared out of nowhere, rescuing all the players. Not understanding what was happening, she looked at the ship's deck and saw a man with a mohawk, who remarked that it was a close call. The man, along with several others, announced that Eltz's royal guard had arrived to help. Rabako almost cried when she saw them, calling out to her leader. Loki was surprised by the arrival of the new allies and did not understand how they had been found. Eltz, with a smile on her face, explained that she had sent out a distress signal when they were first teleported. She still thanked her leader for arriving at the perfect time. The leader of the royal guard gave a thumbs up, revealing that it had taken some time to find the entrance to the special space. He expressed relief that they had brought support items for everyone. Remembering something, he looked directly at Eltz, thanking her for believing in them. She smiled back, returning the thanks. The ship was armed with powerful artillery. With the cannons, it would be possible to restrict Zell's attacks and then rescue Naoki, who had been left behind. They immediately put the plan into action, firing cannonballs while flying around the colossal creature. Zell ordered his transformation to swing its arms to hit the ship, but it was fast enough to dodge the attacks. As the boat approached Naoki, Rabako used her portals, jumping from the deck to rescue the protagonist and quickly return with him. As soon as they were back on the ship, she announced that the rescue was complete and that they could continue their journey. Approaching the duo, Loki asked Naoki how much time was left on his ability. Looking at the counter, he replied that he still had just over a minute and a half. Understanding the time window they had, Loki called for everyone's attention. He stated that it was almost impossible to survive another interval, meaning these 90 seconds were their last chance. Judging by Zell's body regeneration after Naoki's last attack, attacking any part other than the true Zell emerging from the head was useless. He told Naoki that his next attack must hit that spot, without fail. Loki encouraged everyone with a shout, declaring that this last attack would decide the fate of the game and that everyone should give Naoki all the support they could. Having rekindled the flame of will in everyone, Loki turned to Naoki. He reminded the protagonist to be sure of his actions, to never look back, and to give it everything he had. Naoki nodded at Loki's words and walked to the bow of the ship. Placing his foot on the edge, he declared he would handle it. With less than 90 seconds remaining, the protagonist jumped from the ship. Along with him, Rabako also leaped, both heading towards Zell. The Dark King, positioned above the monster he had created, was already waiting for them. He returned to his original body to use his powers of darkness. Joining his hands, he activated one of his abilities, unleashing a shower of attacks upon Naoki and Rabako, like a machine gun of evil energy. Eltz, Loki, Thor, Odin, and all the other players used their ranged attack magic, trying to combat the bombardment launched by Zell. The players' shots collided with Zell's, opening a path for Naoki and Rabako to advance. With 70 seconds remaining, the duo finally managed to approach the monster. Zell swung the skeletal hand of the giant body, but thanks to the opening of a teleportation portal, Naoki and Rabako managed to pass through the attack unscathed. With 45 seconds remaining, Zell summoned a spear to impede their advance and threw it forcefully towards the duo. Rabako was quick. Seeing the spear, she created a new portal. However, the spear possessed a special power. It changed its trajectory, bypassed the portal, and attacked Rabako from behind. Without hesitation, Rabako pushed Naoki away, ensuring he continued his advance against Zell. As a silent farewell, even with fear in her eyes, she smiled at him. The spear tore through the heavens as if the rabbit mage was nothing. Naoki could not believe what had just happened, but he soon pushed away the bad feelings. Determination returned to his gaze. He could not waste Rabako's sacrifice. About 20 seconds remained. Time was short. Naoki landed on the shoulder of the giant monster, close to his target. He quickly ran towards Zell's true body, climbing the creature. Fearing being hit, Zell launched a dark energy attack against Naoki, but his shots, fired in random directions, only hit the monster itself as Naoki skillfully dodged, advancing with determination, fury, and instinct. 6 seconds remained. The time was minimal, a suffocating countdown. Zell raised his 4 hands, creating a small black hole. As the final second slipped away and Naoki's power was about to disappear, He closed his hand, gathering all his power for the final attack. Zell extended his hands, ready to unleash his own attack. At the same instant, Naoki advanced with a decisive punch in the last few meters and seconds. 2 seconds remained. Zell's eyes revealed panic. He could see defeat before him. The last second arrived, along with Naoki's determination, who was betting everything on that final blow. The 2 attacks collided, the punch against the energy black hole. Time ran out. Naoki's final attack hit its target like a ray of hope, unleashing a torrent of energy from the heavens upon Zell and crushing him. As Naoki's attack defeated his enemy, the giant monster awakened by Zell began to disintegrate, like foam in the wind. From atop that creature, Zell collapsed, falling and bouncing against each part of the gigantic body, tumbling and spinning in the air until he hit the ground. Weak, Zell could not move, but he knew he had lost. With difficulty, he looked up. Before him stood Naoki, raising his fist towards him. The victor made it clear that, in his current state, he could defeat him even without his desperate soul ability. He warned that if Zell made any suspicious moves, he would finish him off for real. Descending from the ship, Loki observed Naoki facing the downed Zell, telling him he had done enough and that there was no need to keep his fists clenched. Powerless to get up, Zell remained on the ground. Weakly, he stated that he had no more transformations or tricks, and questioned if Naoki still desperately wanted to eliminate him. As Zell imagined, Naoki gritted his teeth, trying to contain his rage. With difficulty, he revealed why he was not ending it once and for all. He admitted he was not a good person, and would not care if Zell disappeared, but the Hero King would not have wanted that. Instead of meeting his end, he demanded to know why Zell had done all this, a question everyone wanted answered. Why did he fight so desperately against all the other players? With a painful smile, Zell returned the question, asking what they would do with the answer. Their eyes met, but he quickly looked away. He explained that he was just tired of it all. He had always been kicked around no matter where he was, always the target of jokes by those at the top. The only place he found refuge was within this game. When the game became popular, Zell saw the same people who had despised him acting as if they owned the world. Such people became the target of the hatred he harbored deep in his heart. He began to remember a specific day, a time when a certain person appeared. Before he could continue, an arrow hit him. Naoki, who was listening intently, was shocked by the sudden attack. He tried to help Zell, but the dark player began to disintegrate into lost data. He had been eliminated. Surprised, Loki asked aloud what was happening. In front of him, a young man with binoculars observed the scene and revealed that Zell had been eliminated. Before Naoki's eyes, Zell completely disappeared. Shocked, Loki looked around, questioning who had attacked, but no one on the team had drawn a weapon. Discovering that someone from outside had attacked, Loki immediately understood they were trying to silence him. At the same time, a person with red eyes watched Naoki through a screen, like a supreme being following the young man's every move and reflecting on his next steps. Sometime later, the group left the red mountainous plains and returned to the green world, using the flying boat. In one of the rooms, Rabiko opened her eyes. The first person she saw was the worried Eltz, who cried with relief upon seeing her awake. Eltz jumped on Rabiko, emotionally exclaiming her thanks that she had finally woken up. Shocked, Rabiko saw Eltz begin to scream, radiant with the situation. She was being hugged by the actress Tsubasa Yamaha and wanted someone to take a picture. The captain of the guard approached, relieved to see Rabiko well. He still could not believe their plan had worked. The moment before impact, everyone had cast defensive spells, but the shock had still made her lose consciousness. Now that the rabbit mage was fine, the captain asked both of them to follow him to the deck where everyone was waiting. He reminded them that many mysteries remained, and they could not let their guard down. Gathered on the deck, everyone shared the relief of having survived. Loki, leading the meeting, declared firmly that until the system was restored and they could leave the game, they needed to survive by helping each other. After Loki's words, the players began to greet each other, taking the opportunity to forge new bonds. Thor embraced the restrained Loki, telling him not to act on his own in the next battle, and to at least share the plan. Looking away, unable to face his two friends, Loki apologized. Eltz thanked her royal guard companions for helping and saving so many lives, promising to help them as much as they had helped her. Her words seemed divine to Rabiko, who marveled at Eltz's radiant, divine charisma. While receiving her dose of purity, Rabiko noticed something strange about Naoki. With a serious look full of thoughts, he had isolated himself from everyone. A certain melancholy also appeared on his face when he thought of his brother. He mused that what Hiroki wanted to protect had been protected, but many threats remained in this world. They did not know why the game had changed, and that was why he would continue fighting. Clenching his fist, Naoki swore in his brother's memory that he would do this for everyone, including Hiroki. Naoki was not alone on this journey. Eltz, Loki, and Rabiko were among the many people he could trust. With a clenched fist, he faced the bright tomorrow, full of hope and challenges. Meanwhile, in the real world, Naoki's body remained lying in a hospital bed. Beside the bed were two people, a woman in a suit, and sitting opposite her, none other than Naoki's brother, the young Hiroki.